Praise the Lord. Welcome to the Front Runner Podcast. I am your host, Isaiah Marshall. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Front Runner, Mr. Mike O. This is part two of our two-part discussion. Please make sure you go back and listen to part one before listening to part two. In this episode, Cultural Crossroads and Complicated Connections, we talk about faith, we talk about fatherhood, and we talk about the redemptive power of poetry. We show you how to run your race to win. This is Front Runner, episode 18. But I'm intrigued, like you went, had all these experiences as a young person, living in these different places, then coming to America, having to adapt. And I listened to your poem, African in America, which is a very powerful poem in which in many ways I can relate to. But I know in it, you said, America, the one course this student continues to struggle through, the one place that reminds him every day that he is a grain of sand, a splinter, a foreign body stuck here to be forced out. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like about that, just that feeling and that experience with that and wrestling with that?
Oh boy, a grain of splinter, because that when I talked about that part and describe it using that metaphor is like when you get something in your eye,
yes, sir,
or you get something in your body, it's like the body naturally is gonna want to reject it. So either it's through pain and alerting you that there's something foreign here that should not be here. I don't like it. Or if you're gonna keep it here, is this gonna be painful? That's kind of like how it is, because being like an African in America, part of that was that it was things from the fact that I can't fully really immerse myself, and even when I try, it doesn't work so much. Wow. I try to immerse myself into it, and the more I deny my identity, it's like it's okay at a point, because hey, I can bond with people. I don't have to stick out.
Yeah.
We can all get along. At the same time, even the reminder of my name is fun, because my last name is Olisameka, and it's almost like every time people struggle to say that name, it's like a reminder. I'm like, and I wouldn't think it's that hard, but after a while, I feel like, you know what, I don't even want to fight anymore. I'm not even gonna try to correct so much people. Wow. But I've heard and then of course kids are brutal, so they're gonna teach you, of course. So I've been called Polish Mika. One guy had one. I had one was the best. One was I think the best one, which was hilarious. I think it was still hilarious. He called me Old Sneaker.
Oh,
so he Old Sneaker. It was very creative. Iska. It's almost like people would botch up my name.
Yeah.
It's like one of those reminders that you're foreign. You're foreign. No matter what you want to do, you're foreign. You're foreign here. And of course, growing up, then it's one of those things where you feel like and I put that in my poem. It's like I feel like I'm too African to be so American, so I can't really just blend in totally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't feel so connected with my roots and my culture like that. Because I'm so American now.
Yeah.
But the whole point with that part was just feeling like I don't fit in here. I don't feel like I fit in, and of course now my values also don't fit in, because there's a difference when how men and women are to look at each other and how we treat each other, and value and the roles and the values, all kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
So you start to feel like I know what I believe, and from my culture, how men and women are to interact with each other, how we look at each other, how we address each other. Like even for me, to this day, I could post something, and if a young person starts talking a little recklessly in my comment section, or somebody who's considerably younger than me, that part of me from my culture comes out, and it's like what we say, like if you offend somebody who's older and like say like African, one of the comments says like, yo, like you my age mates. Be like, what we say is like, because you're not in my you're not my league. You're not.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah,
friends.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's a certain amount of general level of respect
Yes, sir.
that comes from seniority, and that's thrown out the window.
Mm,
Nobody cares about seniority like that. People, well, or I'd say most people don't care about so-called seniority,
yeah.
and maybe unless the business world. But apart from that, you could be a 20-year-old and people could just talk how they want to, and you're like 40.
Mm,
As opposed to my culture, like, no, isn't this way you're supposed to address somebody. There's a way you even bow to somebody,
yeah.
male or female, how you address them. There's a certain level of respect you give
Yes,
somebody
sir.
because they're older. That's not a common thing. So it's just a reminder, the reminders about um, the way societies run,
Yeah.
the way people believe what roles of men and women are supposed to be. Um, Even the food, even the food, even sometimes the food is just like it hits. It's great to experience different foods. But I remember even when I went to, it was not back in Nigeria, but I went to another country in Africa, and I remember it was so hard to even eat the food there, and the food was great. But the problem was is that I learned that because a lot of the foods here are not healthy.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm.
like it's almost like you eating real healthy food from somewhere else was like it's almost as if my body's treating it like it's poison.
Wow.
And so that's when I had a conclusion. I said, a lot of food's not healthy. Like that's
Yeah.
even here. So it's like I'm trying to adjust to live this way and this and that. And my body's not even, my heart and my body are not even having a good time,
Man. I know when I
you know?
heard that, I started thinking about again, sort of my experience, and on one side being, being the son of a Liberian, so having that African, that African side of me, but then also
Mm-hmm.
this American side, being born and raised here in America, and it's almost like feeling like I had to suppress that African side of me because of the stereotypes that people believed about Africa. And when you mention some of the stuff like the spears and all this other stuff, and it's like the jokes that you will get,
Yes,
and it's
yes,
like you try to
yes.
you suppress that part of you because not that you're shameful of it, but because of how other people make you feel about it.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily as as there was different eras. There were different phases of people in the Black community embracing the African roots and everything like that. But yeah, this you don't feel pride.
Yeah,
You don't feel that so much proud to, this is what I am. This is what, and I'm proud to do it. It's almost like I remember I still had people would tell me they could still hear my accent and everything like that. So I guess after a while, it just faded away. It just kind of just faded. Like it's for me, I do it for fun or whatever.
yeah,
But or I notice my accent comes out when I'm talking to another Nigerian. I notice that when I'm talking to another Nigerian,
yeah,
I just know it naturally. It just like it's almost like it's automatic. It just naturally will come out
yeah,
as I'm talking to them. So that lets me know that it's like I learned the code switch. That's another thing. I learned the code switch. I learned how to blend in,
yeah,
not to
yeah.
make myself stand out.
That's deep, man. That's powerful. And I know for me, beginning, growing up and embracing that side of me, and my wife and I, we've been married for a long time, 13 years. And she's from East Africa. So she's from Tanzania. So I get to immerse myself in that cultural experience through her, and just the Tanzanian community around us, and also just my own personal, like from my father and his sister, and just learning more about who I am and my identity as an African. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Mm,
powerful also because one of the ways in which I use art, and particularly spoken word, is like, when you think about the ways in which life can break our hearts, what I mean, I use it in a lot of ways to make art with those broken pieces. So it's
yeah.
like you're processing those things, and you're making beauty from some brokenness, and making sense of the world. And so, how has art played a role in your life? Like, when did you discover that side of you?
Wow. So when it came to that, that was a very interesting. part of my journey. I mean, I used to sing in like a gospel choir in college. And so I feel like, you know, I'm at least I'm still I'm into this creative community. But when it came to like the spoken word, it's almost like that was like something was like unlocked.
Really?
Like like we had like you play a video game and you have some skill, but then it's like something that just unlocks this feature, and then it just exponentially
That's awesome, man.
grows. That happened around 2000. That happened in 2008. And what was weird about it is that I remember a friend of mine sent me a video. This was by Cassidy, a rapper.
Yeah.
So Cassidy was going through his own personal struggle with him and God. And I remember that there was a video where he was in some party or club or something, and he was talking about in his rap about Christ. He was talking about it, and he was a cappella. And he just was saying, like, I represent my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ with all of my heart. And he was just going breaking. And he was teaching doctrine. He was teaching
Yeah.
Christian doctrine. Uh, um, and that captivated me so much. Granted, I never did like I didn't did poetry like that. Write a little something for my girlfriend. That's different. I wrote, I had some, little thing I could write, but I didn't take it to that kind of level. But somehow, when I heard that, it inspired me that I could teach what I believe through this art form, through this art form. And I remember that's around the time there was someone else who happened to have an open mic, and he invited me, and I don't know, I think I was probably gonna sing or something, but all of a sudden now that became an impression.
Wow.
It became an impression, like, after seeing this, I took that chance. I took a chance. Never did it before.
Really?
Never practiced before. I took a chance, and I said, and I was just so inspired to write about Christ and teach about Him. And I remember the first poem I put together. I put together a first poem, and I'm not even sure if it's on YouTube, but I put the first poem that I put together, and I was just teaching about Christ and his work from the garden all the way to the cross and what that means. And it was really more about educating, using the story, but then educating about it. And that's like for me, that's the thing where I people have asked, like, kind of like, yo, how'd you come up with this? And then certain poems I do after that. And I told you, like, look, God gave me this.
Wow.
Like, God gave me this. Like, I've literally, it's to the point where for me, I feel a duty. If someone asks me how on earth did I do this, I gotta give credit to it, because I still look at stuff I've written and I'm like, I don't know how I came up with that. Even if it's a clever bar
Yeah.
or something like that, I'm like, I can't just come up with it. I can't sit down and just easily come up with it. So certain things happen where I just said, God gave me. Listen, He gave me that, because I couldn't have put that together by myself. If someone asked me, "Hey, could you put this together and teach about this?" I was like, "No, I couldn't. I didn't have that."
Man.
So it was like He just uses these opportunities, and not that I'm looking for it, just use an opportunity like that, and next I'm doing more poetry, and He's keeping it going. So that's He wants me to keep it going, and now I'm tapping into all these styles I could try.
But it was
And just
something
creative
you
teaching.
you said it was something that was just unlocked in you.
Yeah, it's like it's not like I'm like, oh man, I want to become a poet,
Yeah.
or how do I become a poet? I'm minding my business, and then all of a sudden it's like just it's like that's when I know I have something, like I have something solid. It's almost like you just have this burning desire, this inspiration. Some people call it like a muse or something like that, but it feels like something, which I believe is God, is He's got your attention, and now He's like, I want to give you something. I want to give you something. And it's so passionate. It's so strong that I gotta write something down. I gotta write down. I gotta record it. I gotta do something, because if I ignore it, it's going to be harder to get that back.
Right.
Like I have an amazing poem that I'm going to finish, hope by God's grace. And it is, and I think I've probably been working it for, I think it's been at least 2 years.
Wow.
That I've off and on put it off, came back, thought about it, and I have not done it. But it's like, and I know it's one of those things where I'm like, he gave me these inspiring words and how he wants me to communicate um, certain messages to people.
Man, that's deep because I mean, I think in a way, and I think about my experience. I mean, I think it's somewhat similar, but I know for me, I grew up a very emotional kid
Hmm.
and really didn't have a whole outlet because you grow up in a context where you're not supposed to show emotions, you know, as a young man.
Yeah,
And I know
and it worked that way.
when I went to college, you know, I carried that with me. And one of the ways that I started to kind of process some of it was through journaling. And so I would journal because I would, you know, take these long Greyhound bus rides from Mississippi to Detroit, and I would just journal. And I think the poetry aspect came once I had to let go of track and field. And it was sort of like a way, you know, I was grieving this thing that had been a part of my life for so long. And it's like losing a part of me in some ways. And I think out of that, the poetry thing started to come in. I'm like, I didn't know this was in me or in here, you know what I mean? But it was, you know, it's just something I guess that was just unlocked because I released and you know released something out of my life that had been a part of my life for so long, but then I just started discovering other things about myself.
That's beautiful. I believe that's one thing it does, especially for men who I definitely connect with you as far as that. I was a very emotional kid as well. You know, I'm talking about my desires for a relationship, a deep romantic desires to have relationships, and then feeling like you can't express yourself safely,
Yeah,
even about how you feel,
yeah,
just about not just in general. You don't say, and this is one of the areas where you are free
yeah, man.
to express how passionate you are about anything, and people will listen to you. And that's the other thing, people will listen to you. You feel like I'm talking, I'm passionate, and no one's they don't understand, they don't want to listen to me. And this is where I can be passionate about whatever I want. I can be passionate, and I have my own. I have poems about um relationships.
Yeah.
I can be passionate about how I feel about that, and people are going to hear me, and people will be able to connect with what I'm saying. So I agree with you. It's like, you know what, this becomes an outlet for me to use to express, even if I'm frustrated about something. I have a poem called "I'm Really Not Into Relationships," and it's really just me talking about how I'm just really just annoyed at what the state is and how we generally view relationships. So not against relationships itself, but I'm just against the way we kind of have viewed each other and how we treat each other. And that came through, I think, just having conversations
Yeah,
about it. You talk about conversations about, you know, like, man, what men are doing, what women doing, or just what you're frustrated about. And then boom, I put it into a poem, and it becomes a way I can express how I feel about anything.
yeah, and I think that's beautiful, man. Like it's not only ministering to you, but it's also ministering to others who are also
Yeah,
frustrated with the state of like relationships and stuff, man. I think that's the beautiful thing about poetry.
that's
Now I
that's
know
why
you have a lot of followers
yeah.
on IG. You know what I mean? You make a
Yeah.
lot of great videos and have a lot of following. Um, do you ever find yourself though? Like I know in track and field, you know, we have this concept of like staying in your lane. Do you ever find yourself as a creative, as an artist, just falling into that comparison trap? Like, how do you avoid falling into the comparison trap? In other words, like, how do you focus on staying in your lane?
Hmm. Let's see. Staying, stay this thing about staying in my lane, because I definitely know that, and know I definitely have felt fallen into that kind of comparison thing. You want to do something, or even if when I admire what somebody else is doing, um, there's something a lady told me once that I was talking about like my poetry,
Yeah.
and I'll talk because I noticed this. I still have a certain style that I do
Okay.
of my poetry, and then I would see what the popular ones were, like what people, you know, what people gravitate towards, people were so fascinated by, and I found myself like I think I said something like, you know, like maybe if I did it like that or style like that, and she said something. She said like if you do like if people are going to come like people want to go hear you. If you're gonna do poetry like them, pretty much she's saying if you want to do poetry like them, it's like that just takes away from you.
Yeah.
Like people should want to go to hear you,
Mm-hmm.
not hear you be like them.
Yeah. They can just go to
You
them.
know?
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. Pretty much it's saying like, why would you be like them? Because then, they have their own thing.
Yeah.
People should come to you because that's what you do. So I think the important part was having that deeper value of saying, you know what, I have to fight for this. I have to fight for who I am because it's easy. This world is likes to pull at you and say you're not good enough or what you are, especially when you don't see the results you may want, and you see super results on the other side. And you're like, oh man, maybe if I and it's like no, because at the end of the day, it's not you. So it's almost like one is fighting for me, meaning I know how I am. I know how I think.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way that I communicate certain things, and even if it's not so popular or it doesn't seem like it's so popular, but that is the truth. That is the honesty. That is how I do. Like one thing I people can tell if you listen to some of the poetry I've done, I watch battle rap or I have
Yeah.
watched
You
battle
can
rap
see.
because
Yeah.
because that for me, I don't even listen to poets like that. I don't like listening to poets.
Wow.
Sometimes people like, they might send me something. I personally don't like listening to poets. One reason is because I I don't like that feeling where I feel like because they're doing so great, I don't like looking at it like, oh man, like maybe that's something I want to try. It's a common style of poetry is done and it's cool. It's cool. I like it. But another side of it is that, but this is so much more attractive to
Yeah.
me, as impressive as all that is. This impresses me. Why? Because first there's memorization. You have to be very clever. You have to be very witty. You have to understand actually a lot of styles if you break it down because they have to learn entendres and
Yes,
metaphors
sir.
and you have to have a very sharp type of mind in order to come up with the things that they come up with. That's why I watch battle rap stuff because I see how sharp you have to be in order to try to convince an audience of what you're saying and not be predictable. And
Yeah.
so that's
What?
why it's like
Yeah, that's deep.
it's stunning for me. So for me, that's actually my favorite way of looking at poetry. So that's why I'll incorporate that into what I do. So it's almost like I have my own way of looking at things. I have my own way of being inspired by
Yeah.
things. Not that I can't gain inspiration. I have gained inspiration by listening to another a person, but it's one is being true and honest about what do I like and how do I like to
Yeah.
communicate in spite of whatever results that other people are getting, whatever like that. What makes me feel excited um about what I do?
Mm-hmm.
What makes me to take all the people away? What do I like to do and focusing on that? I think from that everything makes sense because then I don't marvel after somebody say, "Oh man, if only if I did it like that," or maybe. And mind you, we all because even like people who play basketball, there's always something you can learn, and there's always something another player can teach another player and
Right.
say, "Hey, yo, instead of shooting like this, what if you shot like this?" But that's just like just a small tweak in your
Yes,
technique.
sir.
Like one person said to me once, it said, they noticed I'm pretty fast when I did my poetry. It's like, yo, you could slow it up.
Yeah.
But that's just a way you can improve your technique, but not just abandon your whole style, your whole style.
Yeah. I think predictability, that whole predictability factor is important. You know what I mean? It's like almost like having, rhyming, but not sounding too rhymey. You know what I mean? It's like being clever with rhymes and different things like that. And I know, we all kind of have our own lanes and our own, how we um, communicate. It's like finding your voice and being okay with your
Yeah,
voice and knowing that, hey, this is my voice and there's none like it. Um, and I
that's
think that,
really
yeah, I think that's
important.
important. And
Important
I
and great.
and I know I've seen like, I've listened to some of your poems. I know you was on like the Bible bars thing.
Oh yeah,
Were
yeah, yeah.
you?
Church of Love has Bible bars. That's it. That's because and see since and it's like how it makes room for you. Your gifts make room for you,
Yeah.
but because that's what I was fascinated by then it would then if I was doing something else, it may not have been something that may have worked out even better. But because I'm so fascinated about it and I studied it, then it made it easy. It made it easy to collaborate with that because I'm like, I'm just using what I like to do. This is what
Yeah.
I like to do. I love to find a clever way to try to communicate something, and that's a normal part of me. So, and that's another thing where I feel like, you know what, that's a serious reminder about when you're embracing really how what makes it unique. Like even the stuff I do on social media, I don't think anything is really new. It's just that the newness is how I use these things. You
Yeah.
know, people have done poetry, people have done these different, but it's the way that I combine these elements to make it, in a sense, comes off new. Even when I'm doing my comical videos, my funny videos, where I'll do something like I do a funny voiceover, like, oh, what if Mufasa was Nigerian?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
clearly people done voices before. Clearly people done these things, but I combined these two
Yeah.
things, and that's what makes it unique.
That's
So
awesome,
it's kind of
man.
like embracing the fact that it's not about, oh, I got to find a whole new thing, but it's really like, how can I do things my way? Because like I said, like you can be a basketball player, like the how could you invent? You want to invent a new move? Is it that deep? You could, but how about you use the moves that are already there
Mm.
and make something of that for you? And that becomes what's new. It's just how you use what's there. And
Mhm.
that's kind of where I believe that I have my own lane. Because even all the stuff that I do, even if it's the comical stuff from the poetry stuff,
Yes, sir.
I'm using things that other people do. But I'm using it in a way that fits me. It fits me
Yeah.
now.
You making
It
it
fits
your
what I
own.
do. Is my my culture. My culture is important to
Yes,
me.
sir.
So then I bring my culture into my works. You know, that's why where you even get the African in America poem. You know, so it's like I'm the style of poetry is not different, but my story is
Yes,
different.
sir.
And so now I'm just bringing myself into it because because you're already a unique person. There's no one that would be like
Yes,
you.
sir.
So it's really just embracing the fact that no one is like you. You have a story that no one else has, and for a creative person, if you worry about feeling, oh, how do I make this my own? I said, it's almost like you're already different. You're already different, but you don't want to be. You want to expose that,
That's good.
and that's the problem. Just bring yourself into the actual art,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it different.
That's real. Yeah, I know, the scripture says there's nothing new under the sun. I mean,
Nothing.
yeah, and it's like even with the basketball now, even with poetry in general, it's like you're using words. Words already exist. You know what I mean? It's like, but you're
Nothing new.
using words and how you put those and string those together to communicate a particular, theme or something that you want to communicate. It's like you're
Yeah.
taking ownership of that part of it and making it your
Even
own.
then, exactly. Then try to make some in your even then try to make something different. Like, okay, like for instance, even with rappers, then one of like even we could like rap artists or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nowadays it seems like a lot of rappers sound the same. A lot of musical artists don't have a lot of differences with them. But like like say back in the '90s, there was very sharp distinctions with different rappers.
Yeah.
You know, Nas was not Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes was not LL Cool J. LL Cool J was
Mm-hmm.
not Jay Z. Jay Z was not Biggie Smalls, and all that kind of stuff. Biggie Smalls was not P Diddy. P Diddy was not Mace. And there was not like everyone was like, it was like people had their own individual styles, and part of the difference was because they sounded different.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not necessarily even so much how deep the rhymes were, sometimes it was just like someone just had a different type of voice.
That's
Somebody was more aggressive. Somebody was more smooth, and it just, even if that little one element, or and saying, hey, if I just, maybe I just change my tone, maybe if I just change, even if you change one thing, it can be a different thing
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
just because you change one thing. So I think that's important because I know that there are people who they're like, I don't know what's different about me, and it's like, you know what, maybe if you just change one thing, you can create your own lane.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes we have to
Once
find it
belonged to my
or
late
create
father, whose
create
That's
the
remains
lane.
real.
rest in the
Yeah.
place I
You
now
know,
That's a
call
good word, man.
home.
I appreciate that.
One of the few things he left behind, this unconscious hand-me-down, sewn by worn-out hands, composing this African song. Each thread sings a skillful man's fight for a living. Look what my people can weave together. My people. These days I hear the voices calling, creating a deeper longing, because while I may appear an African American, I'm really an African living in America. America. The one course this young student continues to struggle through, the one place that reminds him every day that he is a grain of sand, a splinter, a foreign body stuck here to be forced out or to slowly disintegrate within.
Well, one of the things that I like to do to kind of close, because we've been having a very fruitful discussion about art, about culture, about just some great things that I feel like listeners could really benefit from. But one of the things that I like to do is I call it rapid fire, but I mean it's not really rapid a lot of times, but it's more so like heart questions. You know what I mean? It's like, man, what's in your heart? And just allowing you to share. And so I'll ask some things, and you'll just kind of share what's on your heart in regards to these. And so the first thing that I want to ask you is that when challenges arise in your life, who or where do you look to sustain you and help you get through?
Let's see. When challenges arise, I look, man. Let me see. It's a combination of things. I look to why I'm doing what I'm doing. So sometimes, at times I have to look into myself and like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is exactly the goal here? And how do I connect to that goal? Like, for instance, I'll be honest, one of the, I think it might have been this week or last week, I was feeling really depressed. I was really feeling out of it. The feeling like, I'm kind of tired. I feel defeated. I feel like this isn't even gonna work. And that's funny because look at it, like I have all these followers, I got this going on, like it's just time to feel like I'm just tired, and you don't want to go anymore. Like I just feel like I'm kind of done here. And I just look at I look at my surrounding, I look at my situation, and that frustration that even comes from saying like, if I give up, I'm not gonna go nowhere. I'm just gonna be here. I'm gonna be here. It's actually not gonna go anywhere, and it's gonna get worse. So I don't want to be in this state. And sometimes that was enough to be like, I'm actually so angry about this situation that I'm in that I don't want to be in it, because it's almost like I found something that I said, you know what, if anything, let's get past this part of it, like if it's like, hey, I don't like this, I don't even like where I'm living right now. Like, it's cool, I'm doing it for a time, but I said, you know what, if you do nothing, that's not going to change. So let's get up, because there's something that needs to be accomplished. And it seems like that's not super long lasting, but it was enough to get me out and get back going. And another part is just the spiritual aspect of it, where it's like, I have to ask God for help. I have to lean on God for help, just because of and you know this well, the frustration of when you kind of just, you only see maybe a little bit, or when you're trying and it's not, you just don't, doesn't seem like it's working, and you're getting frustrated. You're like, am I even doing the right thing right now? I don't know. Or am I doing the right thing? And just to lean on God for help, and like, God, just help me, point me in the right direction, or even if just help me to get past today. Just help me to get past today, no matter what's going on. Help me to get past today, so I do not miss the mark. I don't miss the mark He has for me. It's gonna corrupt me. Just submitting to God, and just say, you know what, I don't know where the future's going. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. But I do know today I need help. And so I have to submit and just say, I don't try to figure it out. Because if I try to figure it out, try to work it out myself, it's gonna be all it's gonna be ruined. It's gonna be ruined. And then accountability. I also have accountability. That's like, so for me, so it's like, one part was the understanding the why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? This is something that's a huge passion of mine. This is where I want to go with it. These are the desires that are in my heart. that I want to see accomplished. And if I don't do anything, nothing will get done. I have to stick to that why. Other part is I have to trust in God to provide for me, even if it's just like I just need help right now, just to get through my day, just so I don't go into sin and an error and then corrupt myself that I'm of no use or not in the use that God intended for me. And then the last part is having accountability, that people I can call, people I can talk to and say, yo, I'm feeling really depressed, or I feeling or check in with them like, yo, I'm really upset right now about something, or this or that, or I can just connect with that I can draw strength from them. You know, they'll draw strength from you, but you need people also that you can draw strength from them who can also encourage you and remind you that, hey, you got goals here, you got things you want to accomplish, point you in the right direction, point you to God, and helping you to stay on course.
I've just reminded of you know, what Paul says, where he talks about the secret that he's learned in terms of being content. And I just think about, you know, contentment being, man, just recognizing that God has us exactly where he wants us, and he's provided exactly what we need. Like, he's our help, ever-present help. And so, yeah, that's awesome, bro. Like, so what are two things that you appreciate about yourself?
I'm funny. I appreciate that I'm funny. Why? Because, man, life is rough. And one thing I appreciate is that I can find humor. I heard this guy, I think his name Michael Jr., a comedian. He said laughter is a sign of hope. And so I like the fact that I believe I have a really great sense of humor, because one thing I like about it is that, you know, no matter how rough life gets, it just makes you feel lighter. Whether it's the creative stuff that I make, that honestly, because some people see my video, they like the fact that I'm making the video and I'm laughing in the video. And that's not necessarily a thing people do when they want to show people the final product. But I show people the fun in making the product. And I found that to be just a blessing. The Bible says also that a merry heart is good as medicine. So that's why I like the fact, because that's a way I give medicine to myself and give medicine to other people. So I like the fact that is something that I'm willing to not just for myself, because even if I wasn't sharing with people, I'd still be having fun, finding some way to amuse myself nonetheless, because I believe that's like such a powerful sign of hope. That's one thing. I think you say what, two things. You know, I think I appreciate myself. I appreciate myself that I want to say I'm smart, but I want to say that there's a type of thinking that I have that is more of an independent kind of thinking. There's a certain type of intuition that hits me at times, and I may not see the ins and out of it, but I just noticed that I'm like, you know what, something may be bothering me, something may be going on. And sometimes if I just wait and not jump to conclusions or this and this and this and that, things seem to work out. There's a certain type of analytical ability I have that I just feel like, you know, I really appreciate, because I know that I've saved myself a lot of grief just from being able to listen and pay attention and just think for myself at different times, you know, not just necessarily go with the crowd. And that's been a huge challenge, because in a world that wants you to think like everybody else, it's hard to just make up your own conclusions in life and what you want. As challenging as it is, because it's not easy to stand on something that's different from the majority of how people think. But I appreciate the fact that I'm willing to challenge myself and think for myself, which means I'm prone to, like, I don't want to just believe in your God. I want to believe in my God. I don't want to just go with everybody saying this is what people are supposed to do. I'm like, yes, but I want to challenge the way people think. And of course, that comes through my poetry. I'm willing to challenge the way we think, because I think more like an individual. Like, I'm willing to say, hey, why do we have to do this? So why do we need to do this? so I can personalize it for myself instead of just being a clone, you know? So yeah.
So what's bringing you joy right now? I know, I know you
Right
said you was
now,
down a little bit, like, but what's bringing you joy?
I was mad. I was down. I was down. But what's honestly, I honestly, it's funny because right now I feel happy the fact that I'm just talking about this. This honestly, I feel joy just knowing I'm talking because this is one of the reminders that I'm I'm doing something that God's pleased with when it comes to communicating. And I something somebody told me. Uh, man, I think that God used somebody to speak to me, and they were telling me how, because I must have been going through a rough time. They were telling me that like the poetry that you're doing, he was saying like you're this is the means of which strengthens your relationship with God. Like she was just revealing that, and it was like, honestly, that's where I find a lot of joy. I find a lot of joy in creating. So that's really the like what brings me a lot of joy is just making stuff. Even if I'm if I'm working on a new poem, performing a poem, making a video, bringing joy to other people, bringing something that people will be like, wow, uh, like this is hilarious, and people telling like, yo, I spit out my coffee or something like that. The fact that they are really they are they I'm believing these people. It's hard for me. So I'm thinking, are really spitting out your drink? They talking about like they woke up their child laughing. So people, the fact that people are really having such a merry, just emotional, joyous kind of experience just from the content I share.
Awesome, bro.
That's something that I see is tremendous for me. Just the fact that I'm able to just bring this habit. Oh yes, before I forget, and the fact that um people who have had a rough time, they also like me. That people who have a hard time, and when someone communicates to me that they were going through a rough part of their life and they stumbled on my content, and they were like that helped them through that. That was where I was like, I crack jokes, and then sometimes I know I've thought like, God, do you really want me doing these funny videos? Like, you want me doing all that stuff? Because it's like, is it really fruitful? Is it really fruitful for God's kingdom? You cracking jokes, that kind of stuff. Am I just being a jester? But when someone's like they're going through a rough time, they're like, they had a rough day, and they saw my video, and they're like, they just reminded me that thing again. It's like, yo, a merry heart is good as it's like medicine.
And it also reminds me of what you the quote you mentioned, that laughter is a sign of hope. We got to keep laughing.
Yeah. So what keeps me going is that what brings me joy is that I can keep laughing, and I'm bringing this to people, and that God is using me and speaking to me and inviting me into this creative process. The more I create, the more I invite Him in to help me create, the more satisfaction and joy it is. And I also do photography. I felt joy. I feel joy just even when I'm able to create a good setting and have a good photo session, because it's just that it's something about that's where it is. Like the creative process and seeing, it's almost like when God in Genesis, God is making everything. He's making bit by bit, and then I like where it's like he's not saying it specifically, but he's like he steps back and he look at it like I like that. That's really what I feel. I make a poem. I'm like, wow, I like that. I put those bars together. That's crazy. Or I do a photo shoot. I'm like, yo, that went so well. I like that. And that's the experience of being part of a creative process and be able to witness that is my joy.
So the last question is, what does winning look like, and what does it mean to you? What is winning? If we're gonna run to win, what does that mean for you?
Oh, winning. That's tough because we track guys, so we know that winning means you won. We know winning means you got the medal. Winning you came in third place. As opposed to this aspect of it, which is not like the track world that we had, where winning is just, even if winning is the fact that you haven't given up. Like winning is really, like, for me, not giving up. Winning is when I say, in spite of the fact that maybe financially I went through a rough time, spiritually I went through a rough time. Doesn't seem like I can make sense of what's going on, but I still trust in God to provide. Like my favorite scripture is one part I think is, I hope I can get it right, Philippians 4:19. It says, but my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. Just the fact that I receive that and I claim that, and I'm not letting my circumstances dictate how I feel, and I just trust in God's promises, like that's winning. You know, like everything can crumble around me. All my digital sites can shut down, and I could be like, all right, well, God's gonna provide for me. That's winning. You know, because then it's like our opponent, depending on what sport you're playing, like our opponent many times is ourselves, but our opponent is, as the scriptures say, it's like it's other spiritual forces, you know, these are things that are not flesh and blood, and they are against us. So for me, winning is that I didn't give in. I didn't give in to spiritual wickedness that wants to get me to give up. I didn't give in to the devil who wants me to just throw everything in and then go back to my old life, you know. And I don't give into my own. I don't even give into my own laziness and my own flesh that wants me like, bro, you're wasting your time. It's not that deep. It's really just, even if it's just staying on the course.
That's good.
That's
a good word. You encouraging us and challenging us to run and win. Don't give up. Don't give in. That's awesome, man. I appreciate that, man. It's been good, man. It's been good hearing your story and just learning from you and everything. Like, how can people stay connected and follow you in what you're doing?
Well, on my digital sites, on my social media sites, This Is Mike O. You can follow me at all of that. They can stay connected with me. People reach out to me, and I don't get back to everybody, but if you at least reach out to me sincerely, I'll try to get back to you. At least if you have something to share. That's especially when people send a message like, "Yo, I really appreciate that you shared this," or whatever. You know, I want to be able to communicate back my appreciation.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me on social media. This is Mike O. On YouTube, you can just find me. You can put in at This Is Mike O, but Mike O Poetry, and you should be able to find me there.
Hey, and I can attest to that, brother, because I reached out and you responded.
Yep. That's cool.
I appreciate that, man. Well, hey, this has been the Front Runner Podcast. I pray that everyone, all the listeners, were blessed. Follow Mike O, support what he's doing, and I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on, bro.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Follow the Front Runner Podcast and share with a friend. Also, follow me on Instagram at @DIsaiahMarshall. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, which can be found in the show notes. And while you are at it, be sure to check out all of my released spoken word poetry projects anywhere you stream music. Thank you for supporting my creative journey. This is the Front Runner Podcast. Until next time, bless
I'm out front running. I run win. That's why I run with him. No looking back. I leave it on the track.